mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 6 of Amazon Prime's The Peripheral, with a title that I cannot say, because if I do say it, I risk losing losing the ability to post ads for saying the F word within the first 30 seconds of this video. And I don't want to make that risk, or take that risk. So I'm going to wait a little bit before I say the episode title, but what I will say is the episode title is named after the two passwords that this sheriff hands over to Corbell Pickett with an open, unlocked computer. Like, this guy, like, Corbell Pickett runs this town. Like, the sheriff is just like, here's my computer and here's my passwords. Enjoy. I'm going to leave. You want me to leave the door open? You want me to lock it? Like, wow, what service this guy gets. Corbell, that is. But, so this episode was interesting because while we did learn some more information, and while it was still a fairly compelling episode, there's a lot of things that are happening that have caused this show to kind of almost, I don't want to say regress, but it's the problem is that it has yet to meet the quality of those first two. The first two were really good, and these last four have been just okay, ranging from like okay to good. But like none of them have been like really kind of just holy shit, I love this show like that for those first two episodes. And again, I'm gonna feel like I'm being a little bit nitpicky here, but there's a couple of things that happen here. I'm just kind of like, I don't really know about that. So with two episodes left, also there were some interesting decisions made as well. So let's get into this. First, I want to talk about Connor. Connor actually opens the episode to a degree. We start in 2028 in Texas, and we actually see the moment where Connor loses 75% of his limbs. Now, some of the eagle-eyed viewers of this channel, of these videos, caught in the, I don't know if it was last week's episode or 2 weeks ago, but whichever episode it was, where the woman, what's her name, Grace, I think, was explaining to Alita how that upside-down green pyramid thing works with the behavior modifications. And she gave the example of like, here's these soldiers and there's this dog here, yada, yada, yada. And a couple of you eagle-eyed viewers caught that actually was Connor in that scenario. You know, it's one of the pitfalls of only being able to watch once before I got to get up here and talk about it. There's things that I might miss, or things that might be a little bit more clear on subsequent views that I just don't have time for because I need to get these videos up as quickly as possible. So I didn't watch it a second time before I did that video. I didn't realize that was Connor, but you know what I think? I think we weren't supposed to know that was Connor, and this opening scene was supposed to be like a reveal. We were like, holy shit, that thing that we saw with the behavior modifications last week or 2 weeks ago, that was actually Connor's real life situation, and holy shit, this is what really happened. And like, that was supposed to be a reveal, but because everyone in the comments already told me that was Connor in that situation, it wasn't a big reveal. So I don't know, should I say screw you guys for spoiling this for me? I don't know. But in episode 1, well, I'll briefly run down what happened here. We don't see any indication that Connor is struggling with this decision, because they said it was a behavior modification thing, right? I'm wondering if like it might have been smarter for Connor to be like, oh, this is stupid, fuck that dog, I don't even give a shit, and then just like take an immediate 180 and be like, I'm gonna go save it. Whereas Connor was always, like, throughout the whole conversation, was always kind of on board with like, yeah, but maybe there is no sniper and maybe we could save this dog. Yeah, he was always kind of on board, so I thought that was a little weird in retrospect to know that essentially his behavior was being dictated as opposed to him making his own choice of free will. But he goes down there to save this dog. He cuts it. It's wrapped in barbed wire. He cuts the barbed wire. He discovers a bomb underneath / inside this dog. It blows up, and that is RIP to the dog and nearly RIP to Connor. But I wanted to talk about this scene because there was something absent in this scene that I've been curious about. If you guys remember in episode 1 or 2, Burton and his crew talk about the fact that they got a warning about what was going to happen to Connor, and that it was a warning that came along with the same amount of money that was referenced in, was it like $8 million? Whatever it was, the number was a number that was offered for something else. I can't remember. It's been a while. It's been a few weeks. And we don't see any kind of confirmation of that in that scene. Like, we don't see anything that suggests that Burton or any of those other people understand that if Connor goes down there, something's gonna happen to him. Like, there's no warning, like, hey Connor, maybe you shouldn't go down there. So I'm wondering, is that something they just kind of just said, fuck it, we were like we're not worried about that. We'll do they expect us to forget? That was kind of a big deal to me. And it's not to say that won't come back around, but I know that seemed like a pretty opportune time to kind of give us a little bit more information on that piece of it, since that wasn't really broached at all. It makes me wonder if that's something that we're going to find out about later, or if that's something that the show might have fucked around and missed, you know? Hope not. And then Connor later decides that he wants to live in the Peripheral in this new body. Well, no, I'm sorry, live in a Peripheral in future London. I don't want to call future London a Peripheral. He wants to live in a Peripheral in future London. We already know that they've requested to have peripherals made for both Burton and Connor. We see those made in this episode. And in order to sustain his body in his current timeline, he plans on doing this this IV catheter kind of hookup that's going to help maintain his current body while he lives in future London in the Peripheral. And I'm assuming this isn't going to work out. So I'm curious to see how it's not going to work out. Also of note in this episode, we meet a new character, which is strange, I think, for episode 6 out of an 8-episode season. But her name is Detective Ainsley Lowbeer. Lowbeer, Lowbeer. And her assistant Beatrice, is the one who calls her ma'am, but it sounds like mom. The only reason I know it was ma'am is because I watched the captions on. It really sounded like mom to me. But there's a couple of things that I found a little bit jarring about Lowbeer's appearance in this episode. Well, for starters, it's just a bit strange to be meeting a human cop who is investigating crimes in future London in episode 6. It's like, it kind of felt like future London was a free-for-all. Like, aside from, like, it's just like you have a certain faction of people, like the Kleps, who have power, and like they just kind of do their own thing or whatever, other than I don't know the extent to what they do, but other than the robots who kind of patrol, it seems kind of like a free-for-all in future London. And then out of nowhere, they introduce this idea like, hey, we have human police here. Like, what the fuck? Like, that was weird to me. Like, did you guys not get that vibe too, that future London was kind of like a free-for-all? Like, I don't really see a police presence here. You don't really see any presence. So for her to be brought in this late in the season in a show that hasn't really established like actual law enforcement in future London, I thought that was a little weird. And then also, we're introduced to her in a scene where she is told about the robot that killed OG Daniel. What was that? Maybe like, again, 2-3 episodes ago? You remember Charisse was watching this scene through this robot. It looks like Daniel might be in a position to give up information, so the robot kills Daniel, and now we have the robot Daniel that we have now. But the first time we see a human cop is for that? Like, doesn't that seem kind of like not that big of a deal for them to finally roll in a human cop? Like, granted, maybe a robot killing a human is probably it may be one of the only crimes that warrants human investigation, but it is like, that felt a little insignificant to me. I feel like we've seen much bigger crimes. Like where was Detective Lowbeer when Charisse had all those bees kill Grace? Like, that seems like something you might want to send a human detective to investigate. I don't know. But having said that, I really enjoy this Detective Lowbeer character. Like, the banter that she has with her assistant Beatrice in that first scene, the introductory scene, I thought was really entertaining. And then the scene at the end of the episode where she interrogates Lev and Wilf, mainly Lev, I thought that was a great sequence, because this interrogation, it's presented to Lev as like a deal. Like, let's make a deal. And she presents it to him with these options, but she talks him through the entire process without giving him a chance to speak. It's like, we could do it this way, but here's all the different ways that's gonna fuck up, and you wouldn't like for that to happen, would you? No? Cool. So how about this other option? We could do it this way, and then that works out way better for me, that works out way better for you. How do you feel about that? Good? Cool. Give me the peripherals and give me the people. It's like, he didn't even get a chance to speak. Like, I thought that was a really good sequence, and I enjoy the banter of the Lowbeer character with Beatrice. And I even enjoy just when she's apparently just talking and not allowing anyone else to talk. And they mostly explain everything to her as it pertains to like the peripherals and how they've had Flynn there this whole time, all that good stuff. And then our crew being Flynn, Burton, and Connor, inhabit those peripherals at the end of the episode. And I just want to know what Lowbeer is going to do with this information, because Daniel being killed is easily like the least important thing that she needs to be addressing. Like that shouldn't even be on her radar. Like, it's weird enough they use that to introduce her, but she needs to let that go. That shit, we've already moved on to Robot Daniel. We don't need an investigation into Human Daniel. But I'm unsure if she's like going to be a good guy or a bad guy. It feels like she's very much willing to do bad cop, but at the end of the day, she just wants to get the job done and do the right thing. Like, she don't seem dirty. She just seems like somebody who's willing to push the envelope to get things done. But at the end of the day, her end goal is the right thing. Now, having your end goal be doing the right thing doesn't absolve you from potentially being the villain on this show. It could still reach a point where she does some really fucked up stuff to get to that good goal. But yeah, I don't know. She keeps her cards close to her chest, it seems. Like, it seems like she knows way more than she lets on. So, I don't know if she's going to end up being good or bad, but we're only going to spend 2 more episodes with her anyway, so who gives a shit? Moving on to Tommy, I just can't figure out what his deal is. And when I say what his deal is, I mean, I don't mean all the irrelevant shit I don't care about, like whatever relationship or situation he might have had with Flynn in the past, or whether it's just Flynn has a crush on him or him and Burton. I don't give a fuck about none of that. What I mean is, we have yet another scene of him escalating his please tell me what's going on plea, that I think this is like the 3rd time now that I think the first time was Burton, the second time was Flynn, and this time is Burton again. And it's getting a little old. Like, okay, can we do something with this character now? And Burton basically tells him to fuck off, but he's so upset about, I mean, he makes it sound like he let Bob escape, as if he had any. How can you harbor guilt over Bob getting away when you got T-boned by an invisible fucking car, bro? Like, there's no amount of paying attention or good cop work that would have changed that scenario. But for whatever reason, he's beating himself up over it. And now he just seems like he's just going to get in even deeper, and he's just going to investigate on his own. His fiance asks him to stop. His dirty-ass boss puts him on a paid leave for supposedly to help him recover from his injuries, but really because he is on Corbell Pickett's payroll, and he does whatever the fuck Corbell Pickett wants him to do. His fiance did, like I said, his fiance asked him to stop. She made a very passionate plea, and he's like, I killed Bob. I mean, it's my fault that Bob got away, and I promised Flynn. All of that kind of amounts to me like Tommy's probably gonna die. The next thing I want to talk about, the fake backgrounds, when they do the little finger thing, and then like the scenery changes. We get more information about that in this episode, and I thought this was kind of cool. It's essentially, all it is like what they call it is like a mood enhancer, and all it does is create a world that feels more real, that feels more vibrant, so you don't feel like you live in the desolate, apocalyptic world that you actually live in future London, with virtually no people and some dilapidated landmarks. You can wiggle your fingers and turn on this unrealistic world where now there's bustling areas, streets, whatever, people walking around, having a good time, smiling. The buildings looked finished or improved or whatever. And I just thought it was a really creative thing. And that's the kind of shit that sold me on this show, is cool stuff like that. Fucking up things like, I'm gonna get to a couple more things in a minute, so I'll save it. But some of the things that they fucked up are pretty important. But stuff like this, these like cool little these little attributes that help create a more 3-dimensional world that seems real. Like I mentioned, I think it was episode 2 or something like that, where we see how she activates I think it was like the gate and like the body language or something of a peripheral, and it was like she tapped some stuff in the air and then like tapped on the back or something, like cool little world building things like that. I think this show does a really good job of, and I thought that shows a level of insight. Like what could technology do in a world where most humans have been lost, and you go like, make it feel like there's actually still people left. I'm fine with the desolate world, but hey, I wouldn't need the little finger thing. I'm like, I'm good. I don't need it. Like that would be a lot better for me, actually. Like, does that work on the freeway? Like, can I just be like, oh wait, there's no cars here? um, so we also learned a little bit more about whatever it is that Charisse says was stolen when Flynn entered their world via the Burton Peripheral. Also, for the sake of keeping things simple, the Peripheral that looked like Burton in episode 1 that Flynn was in, I'm just gonna call that flirting. And now we have an easy way to distinguish what I'm talking about. So we learn in this episode that it is believed that in the moment where Alita pushed Flirton's eye up against the green upside down pyramid, and we see he kind of like jerked back and she forced him closer. She said she felt something, Flynn did. And it suggested that Alita might have downloaded information from that thing into her eye, and then presumably from the eye into a physical object of some sort in Flynn's actual real world. And then that leads me to a couple of questions. One, if you're Alita in 2090 or whatever the fuck year it is, and you steal some important information or data from the Research Institute, what are you supposed to do if you then send that data to 2032? Like, is there a way that Alita can now have a peripheral in 2032 that, I don't know, maybe is Billy Ann? Is there a way for Alita to use that data in 2090 without going back? Like there's a weird logistical thing that I'm trying to figure out what the goal was of getting that data into something else. And then what is that something else? My guess is that it's fucking Flynn herself somehow. I don't know how, but maybe it's because Flynn, I don't know. Maybe it's via the headset. I don't know how, but my thought is that it's in Flynn personally, and that's why Flynn is having these reactions after having gone in there, where her hand clenches up. And then when Tommy's fiance was checking her out, she said that there was something going on with like some part of her brain that affects vision, something like that. So what I'm thinking is whatever information that Alita stole, somehow via the eye or via the headset or both, somehow ended up physically in Flynn's brain, and Flynn just doesn't know how to access it. That's what I'm guessing. And I think that's probably strong guess. But speaking of Flynn, her and Wilf go on this side quest, and they meet with this guy who builds peripherals and parts for peripherals, and he built the ones for Alita. And they go along with this charade that they're actually trying to get work from him. And then when Flynn mentions like, hey, can you swap out a peripheral eye for a human eye, that alerts this guy to what's up, because he connects that to the Alita situation. And they end up fighting, and it's like not a very well filmed scene. It felt weird. Like, why'd they go through this whole charade first? I never really knew if this was supposed to be, like, when they went into this place, I didn't know if this was gonna be an antagonistic meeting where they were gonna kick in the door and be like, yo, we need information, motherfucker, or if it was gonna be, well, what it was, where they try to like do things the right way to pretend to get access, and then once they get into access, then they reveal what they wanted. Like, it was just a little weird. I didn't really know. I don't think they built up what was supposed to happen in that scene enough prior to it happening for that scene to work well when you have them like playing the charade at first and then making this allusion to Alita, and then the fight starts, and then the fight is filmed kind of shitty, and it's like, these are the places where this show needs work. That scene just didn't really work for me, and I feel like that's one where that's a unforced error. Like, they could have made that scene work a little bit more if we had an idea of what was supposed to happen going into it, and then if they just did a better job filming the action sequence. Like, again, I'm gonna say what I said at the beginning. This show, while I do still enjoy watching it, it has yet to match what it did in those first 2 episodes. And then also during this fight, why was Wilf just like standing in the background watching? Like that's how we get down in 2090 London. The men watch women fight. like what is this? He didn't even think about helping. Like, he got comfortable. I think he was like leaning up against the wall and shit. But it reminds me that, later in the episode when Lowbeer is interrogating Lev, she says that Wilf isn't a trophy catch. And both him and Lev make really obvious, yes, he is faces. And like, that's another problem I think the show has. We didn't need anything. If she goes, you're not much of a trophy catch or a trophy fish, and maybe he just like doesn't react, I'm still gonna default to, and then actually this is where I did default in the moment, was the fact that he is a trophy catch and she knows that and she's just bullshitting, or they know that he's a trophy catch and she doesn't. But whatever the case may be, I already had arrived there. So when they, like, immediately. So when they had the, like, I think they showed Wilf's face, then they showed Lev's face, then they showed Wilf's face again, and I'm like, I fucking get it. Like, he probably is a trophy catch. There's something important about him that we don't know yet. We know he killed a Neoprim or whatever in the past. Okay, cool. More mystery for Wilf. Got it. Now, like, let's either get to solving that or quit fucking around with, like, these, like, heavy-handed allusions to him being important. So, like, again, weird kind of stuff that I feel like the show, unforced errors that I think a better show wouldn't make. But back to the guy that they fought. After they beat his ass, he tells them that he can't tell them anything because the Neoprims will kill him. But then he adds that these Neoprims are the only ones that have the ability to do the, like, peripheral to human eyeball swap, which suggests that Alita is a Neoprim. And just for the record, a Neoprim is short for Neo-Primitive, is people who survived the jackpot, but bucked up against embracing technology. They kind of like made themselves to where they don't really require any technology at all. So it's kind of like the hipster. It's like the 2099 hipster. It would be, I think, the best way to put it. And Bob, lastly, is where I want to end. Weird, right? But Bob gets captured by, well, after this sheriff that's on Corbell Pickett's payroll hands over Bob to Corbell Pickett and his boo thing. They put this collar on him that can be electrocuted by remote. And Corbell wants to know who's fucking with his brine. And let me just say, this was a terrible metaphor. Not in the sense of like, here's the metaphor and it sucks. It's like he gives the punchline of the joke without telling the joke that preceded it. Like the metaphor doesn't even exist. He acts like it does, but it doesn't. And again, this was just weird, man. And there's just too many things where I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Like, again, the fight with the peripheral guy, the one who makes the peripherals, weird. This scene, weird. I can't remember what the other one was. I thought was weird. But he starts by talking about like the best ways to tenderize meat. Then he talks about using a brine over a mallet, and he's like, yeah, that makes it so it's perfect. And then somebody, and you get the meat like just the way you want it to your specific specifications. And now I just want to know who been in my kitchen fucking up my brine. And I'm like, I just wanted Bob to turn around and be like, you didn't even kind of sort of connect that metaphor to what's actually happening. So what the fuck are you talking about? Like that's what I wanted Bob to do, because I'm like, he didn't tie this in to anything specific in the real world. Now I'm assuming this probably means he wants to know, I don't know, why there's turmoil in his city. Everything should be under control. He's been getting paid by Burton, theoretically. Wants to know where the money's coming from. Everything should be smooth. Why the fuck is this guy, Bob, who was hired by somebody up in here fucking his town up? I'm assuming that's what he means, but regardless, whether I can figure it out or not, even if I'm 100% right, that is a real shitty fucking metaphor. And that was a really shitty scene, man. I'm sorry. And another goofy moment, also involving Bob, is how he walks up to this fish tank with this big giant fucking rock in his hand, and the fucking woman is like sitting behind him and somehow doesn't see it until he actually hits the fish tank with it. I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is... Like, I'm thinking he's gonna find a way to hide or something. He just walks up casually with it hanging in his right hand. I'm like, she can see that. Like, I'm looking at her in the background, looking at him. I'm like, there's no way she can't see that. And she doesn't see it. I don't know. So yeah, like, again, the show remains entertaining. I'm very much invested and interested in what's gonna happen in these final 2 episodes. But each week, there's like more weird things that are either kind of just like, why would you do it that way? That range from like, why would you do it that way, to scenes like this metaphor where I'm just like, that's just a shitty metaphor. That's just a shitty scene. Like, So like more holes are popping up in the show. The things that it was really great at, like, well, I can't say the things, but like the action that was present in the first 2 episodes has largely been absent since. The only thing, not the only thing, but one of the things that I think is still doing really well is, like I said, the world building here with letting us see how the technology works and all that kind of stuff. I still find all that to be really cool. But yeah, lots of problems this week. But I want to close out with a final thought. I thought it was a cool scene, the one where Connor, after he woke up from dreaming about his situation, which was the opening sequence, he meets with one of their friends and he talks about how he's been struggling with it. And the guy's like, "You want me to help?" And they link up with their haptics. And the guy, what I can gather, he basically took away. I don't even want to say took away because that makes it sound like he just removed it. He absorbed some of Connor's pain so that Connor could sleep. I thought that was again, that is what this show does really well, the technology shit. Like the idea, like they've built up the haptics and how they work to the point where I believe that it is feasible for them to link via their haptics, and this guy can absorb some of Connor's emotional or physical pain. I totally believe that. They built that up. That was a really cool idea on its face, but character-wise, that shows like that friend is really fucking cool. Like, who would do that? Like, let me take some of your amputated limb pain away so you can sleep. Like, that's a ride or die fucking friend right there. And I hope that that's a sign of what we're gonna see in these final 2 episodes with Connor and the Peripheral, because we know how these guys like. There's a nice moment with Connor and Burton in this episode as well, where they talk about their friendship. And those sorts of things this show does do well, and I hope to see that kind of pay off in these final 2 episodes. And granted, this is going to be shitty. Even if payoff is a really emotional scene where one of these people dies at some point, it will be earned because they've shown how dedicated of a friend Burton is, how dedicated of a friend this other guy is, how dedicated of a friend the first guy, the one that he said he had a beret on in the first fucking episode, that guy, how dedicated these friends are. So I think the show has done that really well too. So again, good stuff this week. More bad stuff peeking up. Like for instance, like I this is the first time I've gone as far as to call something that happened in an episode of this show bad. But that fucking that fucking brine metaphor scene, that was a bad scene, man. I'm sorry. But I will see you guys next week for episode 7, which, if you haven't watched the preview for it, watch it. Episode 7 looks like it's going to bang. I will see you guys next week for episode 7. And until then, peace.